Right now, over at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi, climate activist and educator Sonam Wangchuk is making headlines for a grueling 20-day hunger strike. And this is all in the name of education reform and constitutional protections for Ladakh. So welcome to this explainer, where today we're going to dive into the exact biological and psychological mechanics that allow a human being to survive that kind of extreme, prolonged ordeal. Okay, let's dive right into this. When you see someone like Wangchuk literally putting his life on the line day after day, it kind of forces us to ask a really deep question. What actually separates true success from wasted potential? I mean, is it just this extreme natural willpower, or is it a scientific process of effort? Because for generations, we've held on to this misconception that innate talent alone is what dictates success. But what if the data tells a completely different story?
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the myth of talent, explore the science of grit, look into wiring the brain's habits, mastering your inner voice, and finally, we'll wrap up with some timeless wisdom for success.
All right, Section 1, the myth of talent. Let's look at effort versus ability.
Psychologist Angela Duckworth has this absolutely fascinating and honestly kind of shocking premise. She argues that sustained effort actually counts twice as much as raw talent. Without putting in the daily work, that natural ability you have, it's just unmet potential sitting on a shelf. Think about the grueling effort required to sit in protest at Jantar Mantar. It's that everyday grind, that constant showing up despite total exhaustion, that actually builds momentum and leads to monumental achievement.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of grit. This is all about passion and perseverance. We throw the word grit around a lot, right? But let's actually break down the core concept here. It's defined as perseverance and passion for achieving long-term goals over a long period of time. And it heavily emphasizes sustained effort despite massive challenges and setbacks. So grit isn't just for, pushing through your college exams. It is the exact psychological mechanism that allows an activist to maintain a burning passion for long-term education reform, despite immense, truly life-threatening physical setbacks. So how do we know who actually has grit? Well, research identifies several key predictors. A major one is a growth mindset. But I want you to look really closely at meaning and engagement. This is deeply tied to Wangchuk's fight. It's his profound sense of hope and meaning for the students of Ladakh that fuels his extreme conscientiousness. When you have an unshakable why, your drive just goes to a whole new level. And we aren't just guessing here. Rigorous academic studies, like the research from the American Research Journal of Humanities and Social Science, prove exactly what we are seeing play out at Jantar Mantar. Individuals who intensely focus on meaning, engagement, and discipline form a remarkably stronger work ethic to combat literally any challenge that comes their way. Okay, let's get into the biology in Section 3, wiring the brain's habits, focusing on our neural architecture.
Our brains are honestly incredibly efficient machines, and a lot of that is thanks to a region called the basal ganglia, which automates our repeated behaviors through this three-step sequence called the habit loop. It goes cue, routine, and reward. So how does this actually help someone wake up every single day on a hunger strike? Well, eventually, the routine of protest becomes automated in the brain. This automation frees up crucial cognitive resources, meaning the individual can focus on the political and social messaging of their cause rather than just the overwhelming physical pain. To physically endure 20 straight days without food, the brain actively relies on a powerful chemical and physical process. Dopamine signals reward, while neuroplasticity physically reorganizes your neural connections. By repeatedly pushing through extreme physical distress, a person is quite literally rewiring their brain to build gritty new habits. The mind is physically changing its own landscape so it can endure. It is just wild to me. Science has actually pinpointed exactly where this happens. The neural anatomy of grit specifically involves the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and the right putamen. These highly specific brain regions are absolutely crucial for extreme self-regulation and long-term goal orientation. It proves that grit isn't just an idea. It has a concrete neurobiological basis. The immense self-control required to sit peacefully in the elements, starving for a cause, is firing right there in those regions. Which brings us to Section 4, mastering your inner voice. Let's talk about our linguistic habits. So, what's the fuel for all that brain activity? Well, it's your internal dialogue. And there is a stark contrast between positive and negative self-talk.
Positive self-talk fosters encouragement and task engagement. I mean, just imagine the internal monologue required on day 15 of a hunger strike. At that point, a phrase like, "I can do this," is no longer just a cute motivational poster. It is a literal matter of survival that reinforces self-efficacy. Negative self-talk, on the flip side, derails your neurobiology before you even take action. To really master this, researcher James Hardy identified 4 dimensions of self-talk: frequency and manner, valence, motivational interpretation, and functional purpose. Think about your own internal monologue for a second. High-level activists and leaders use these exact dimensions as tools to direct their concentration during times of immense stress. They use instructional cues, things like focus on the objective, to physically psych themselves up when everything else in their body is shutting down.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Timeless Wisdom for Success, where we look at ancient insights.
We have this incredibly profound Hindi quote here, and it translates to, "Hard work should be silent, but your success should speak loudly." It is so incredibly fitting for what we're talking about today. Wangchuk's silent, peaceful hunger strike is the literal embodiment of this cultural wisdom. It's all about working diligently, staying fiercely engaged in that habit loop we talked about, and letting the long-term success of the cause speak infinitely louder than the silence of the protest itself. And that leads right into this next crucial truth. Failure wins only when you stop trying. This completely, 100% mirrors Angela Duckworth's scientific definition of grit. Failure isn't physical exhaustion. Failure is simply refusing to get back up. Wangchuk's refusal to leave Jantar Mantar until his demands for education reform are met perfectly reflects this universally understood importance of pushing through the grind despite absolute crushing exhaustion. Taken in this kind of culturally rich, motivational wisdom, it actually acts as a targeted psychological intervention. Yes, sure, it improves standard academic and professional performance, but as we are seeing on the news right now, it goes so much further than that. It fuels societal resilience, it anchors your mental health during intense crises, and it radically improves your focus when you are fighting for sweeping, monumental reforms. So, we've seen how grit, habit loops, and self-talk can quite literally sustain a 20-day hunger strike for education reform. Now, I'm throwing it over to you. What long-term goal are you going to apply your newfound grit toward today? Remember, your talent is really just the starting line. Your persistent effort is the vehicle that actually crosses the finish. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep pushing forward, and I'll catch you next time.